Hello everyone and welcome to the Tabletop Almanac. My name is Simon. I am your host and content creator, etc., for this. And in particularly sort of dark contrasting light, but I think it looks kind of dramatic in this video. This is mainly due to the fact that I'm doing this on my camera and with my microphone, and that I am not at this moment able to compensate for outside light. So, what are we looking at in this episode? We are looking at Dune Adventures in the Imperium, Houses of the Landsraad. And, hold on. There we go. That's funny. I didn't notice that it was kind of mirrored. I don't know if it'll actually look that way in the video, but if not, flip it around. Okay. The great game, Houses of the Landsraad, is the first of sort of two books I've been looking at since Dune released. And the second one is Power and Pawns, The Emperor's Court, which I'll get to in a future episode. I totally understand why Modiphius went with Sand and Dust, the Fremen and Arrakis book first. The game is Dune. The setting is Dune. Why not do a book on Dune? I'm still reading that one. But I did jump ahead because, for me, one of the aspects that I really love about Dune and the universe is that intriguing, politicking nonsense between noble houses and anachronisms, yada, yada, yada. So, these two books naturally were the ones that should follow and contain what you would want for running a game of that nature, where your house is playing the game against all the other houses. So, Houses of the Landsraad, what does it include? Okay, so there are a couple of things. Some mechanics, a lot of background. The background is extremely beneficial. If you are not a Dune maven, then you will want this to reference. You'll want it for your players to reference. I think licensed properties are some of the hardest ones to break into and some of the easiest ones to. One is you can say to the potential players, hey, do you want to play Dune? And they go, oh, I know Dune. And they immediately have an idea of what it is. If you want to say, hey, do you want to play Alien, Lord of the Rings, whatever, right? These are easy, Marvel RPG. These are easy things to introduce. But where is it difficult? Well, it's difficult in the fact that there's all this setting information that you may or may not be yourself fully versed in. I've had that problem running Dresden Files, where though I like the system and, kind of like the setting, I had not read all the books. Didn't have a full digestion of the scope of, say, magic in the Dresden verse. And so, tripped up a couple of times on that sort of thing. But I think it's also important for the players because they have to be buying into the fact that this is Dune and knowing how it works. And yes, you can provide all the exposition you want as a game master. You can, do all sorts of things to help teach them. But if you have a reference like this, then it works best. Something to note, and when I first heard about Dune coming out, it was not the first thing that came to mind, but it does kind of make sense, is that the setting information in the whole series of books for the game is for the Dune license. So this is not just the six, Dune, Messiah, Children, God Emperor, Heretics, Chapter House. Okay, 6 books that Frank Herbert wrote, but also the extended universe of it that Brian and Kevin J. Anderson wrote. This means that sometimes it's not immediately apparent what is their contribution and what was his. It may clash with some of your ideas about how things should kind of be. Here you just sort of have to take that as it is. Just work with it. It is what it is. You'll make your way through it. And if you really don't like something, just say, hey, I think this was in the thing I pulled out of my ear last week of Dune, and tell your players, I'm not including it. Same way as if you said, nothing's happening past Children of Dune, to be fair to Brian and Kevin. Okay, so there's a very good introduction to this. Well, first, okay, this is like every Modiphius book. It's gorgeous. It's a nice, slimish hardcover. Yeah, slim hardcover, but not so slim that it shouldn't be a hardcover. The font is easily readable. The back of the paper is a kind of sandy color. Surprise, surprise. And they use a lot of artwork that's really evocative of the setting. Some of it hews similarly to the aesthetic of the movie, the Villeneuve movie, but not exclusively, and other things as well. So what this talks about in the introduction is basically beyond what is this book, but why is this book important? And I think probably the most important part of it for a GM to read, and players too, let's be fair, is the section under Conflict in the Imperium, which is what happens when two houses don't get along to the point where they want to kill each other. And why this can't happen the way you as a player might think it can happen. Why you as a player character are beholden to the setting and not able to act just like a player character, hold on, there are air quotes, player character, and run amok all over things, though you can, it's your game. But why the Imperium doesn't like it and what they will do to stop it or prevent it. And that is things like the Great Convention and the Spacing Guild. Just as a short, if you don't want to read it, at least take these things inherent, is the Great Convention is the thing that says you can use this and you can't use this in warfare, like atomics, etc. Lasguns versus shields, bad idea, things like that. And then the Spacing Guild being the ones that can actually move people at a rate that would make open warfare necessary, or not even necessary, I'm sorry, viable. And they won't, or they typically don't. We know it only happens in the series because they kind of get told, or else. So what it does talk about is it does talk about the introduction of Canley and the art of assassination, and how this sort of subverts the idea of open warfare. Remember that, even if you remember nothing else from this book. So Chapter 1, The Great Game, is all about that, how the Landsraad is set up. The Landsraad is not necessarily a governing body. It is a sort of equals, and then the Emperor being first among equals setup, where the more powerful houses kind of make the movements, and then the lesser powerful ones kind of go with or don't, maybe tie break here and there, if there's anything like that. But the Emperor gets that kind of big vote, and therefore kind of not trumps it, but gives the Landsraad is there to kind of give a check on the Emperor's powers, but really only in the sense of, are you sure you should? Whereas everyone else, it's just sort of a pacification technique in a way. But you're going to get a very good idea of how it works, how it's set up, how it's split up. I might take a few notes here and there just to know. You'll also get a section on, I don't know how you pronounce it. It's either Choam or Coam, but it's the Combine Honnête Aubert Advancer or Advancer Mercantilis, CHOAM, which is essentially the bank, in a way. It's the all the houses, the imperial court, their wealth is tied up in Choam. It governs trade, it sets economic policies, and so on and so forth. And here you get how it interacts with the Landsraad, how it interacts with the Spacing Guild Bank, and what if you want to play some Choam characters? So you get a few roles related to that, archetypes, some traits and skills. Some of them are, these are kind of cool. And honestly, I think if you are going to play a Dune RPG, then definitely or a licensed RPG, adhere to the spirit of it, but be ready to break out of the mold of it. You don't have to just play a noble house. You can play a auditor. So, for example, you can have the talent audit, which lets you spend momentum to insist that a house or trade member show you the records of their recent trade dealings. They could be false, but they have to show you something. And then other things like deep pockets where you can create wealth, using your influence to allow to sort of influence trade affairs and things like that. So it's just kind of fun. It's only a couple of pages, but it's definitely an interesting idea. Even to have one as a character in a group, in a cast of PCs, they could bring in all sorts of new plot threads and so on, and be a massive asset. There is, of course, information on the houses, how to become a house, what gets you on the High Council, what makes you a major, minor house, what happens to renegade houses. Those don't exist. We get rid of them, don't we? And how the houses interact with the Empire, with the other major powers of the Imperium, and so on. And then in this section is the art of Canley, and it talks about the War of Assassins, how to conduct it. Different things that should be kept in mind, the basic tenets and so on. Okay, that's the first chapter. It covers quite a bit, but it's relatively concise and clear in its presentation, so that's great. It's background information. Don't know. I mean, that is my review of it. It is well written, and it presents what I think it intends to present. At which point we get to chapter 2, which is Houses of the Landsraad. And these are all the... I mean, I don't think it says that they are specifically not, because these should all be major houses on the Landsraad, or great houses, because they do have sections in each entry on prominent minor houses that are allied with that one. So you get what? Quite a few of them, including our buddies, the Atreides and the Harkonnen, or Harkonnen, or however you want to pronounce it. Nothing specifically on the Corino, because they are the Imperial family and they don't get an entry here. They're not, in the same, at the same level as these people. Each of these, they give you a good amount of information. Their colors, their crest, their primary domains, which, if you might remember from the core book, are their areas of primary influence, what they're known for and what they're known for growing in. So, for example, let's look at House Lindarin, who have a primary domain of industrial and secondary of military and also industrial, because they create lichen-based fabrics and foodstuffs that get shipped across the Imperium, and then they also make small arms and ammunition. Now, this one was interesting. It says, small arms and ammunition mostly for use as self-defense for the average citizen around the Imperium, which is not something I ever really thought too much about, is how does the average citizen defend themselves beyond a knife or a club or something like that. Evidently, they may well use guns. Okay, good to know. You get the house traits. Here they are passionate and righteous. Information about their homeworld, their military power, the population of that world, their key players in the house, the history, and then prominent minor houses. Like here we have Gikoas, who recruit for and train Lindarin's military. Also going to other worlds to find similarly minded fighters. That's because Lindarin are sort of a let's combat injustice across the Imperium sort of house, to the extent of getting involved in other people's conflicts when they weren't asked to. Which, in part, you learn with the agenda portion of the house entry. It's about a column, across the board. Maybe a little less, maybe a little bit more, depending on the house. You'll see more Tani Ikas who have some renown on account of being the last two to have an open war. Rikeze, who had... They are the ones that had it first, right? They had Arrakis, yes, before the Harkonnen. And Vernius, they're also the techie kind of ones. And then Vernius, who are even more techie. And the noble house of Ix. Whether you like that or not, that's up to you. I'm probably going to use it in my games as written. But I always kind of liked Ix just being this weird, mysterious, techie group of people, and not specifically a house. Okay, so that's a very useful section to have in a book on the Landsraad, very important one to have. It's beneficial because it tells you, the GM, who everyone else is, and then you can keep or excise these houses as you want. Of course, it is your game, but the only thing I find sort of tricky is if I'm looking at it going, I want to make my own house, and then, oh, but does it basically get filled in by one of these already? Should I just suggest that the players belong to this house, or however we want to arrange that? So it's not a bad thing, of course, but it does kind of have that feel of, well, everyone's, everything in the setting is being done by somebody, and these are the people doing this one. But of course, don't let that limit you. Cut them out. If I wanted to make my own group of vigilante, superhero nobility, then I can get rid of Lindaren and just stick my own house in there. No reason I can't. So overall, of course, beneficial and of course useful. But your game may vary, and you may want to tweak some of those things. Chapter 3 is on the Spacing Guild. The Spacing Guild they call it one leg of the political tripod maintaining the Great Convention, which is highly true, and you get like the detail. The guild bank, you get information on how they interact with the Landsraad and Choam. You get some interaction on the people in there, brokers, navigators, technicians, and so on. A section on traveling the universe, what it's like to be on a guild highliner, which is really useful because I did have some knowledge of it at first, but Dune's a really dense series, and I find that it's easy to go in with assumptions that you didn't forget anything from the last time you read it. But when I first ran Dune, I was going, wait, what is it like on a highliner? Because I don't recall. And can the players do that on a highliner? Well, this will tell you if they can or can't, because they can't. They should stay in their rooms or on their ships, because remember, highliners are not like tiny little spaceships. These are massive craft that contain these spaceships and basically pull them with them when they're folding space. But this is a really good section to read and keep in mind, because it's so critical to how the Imperium works, that knowing that will help you in all sorts of conflicts. I mean, capital C conflicts in the game, and not getting caught by surprise by anything. Of course, there are rules for having agent-level characters from the Spacing Guild and player characters. So if they work independently, if they are a spy, a scout, a scientist, there are archetypes for all of these things, so you can draw them, put them into your game. The core book has a ex-Spacing Guild member as an archetype. And this just expands on that. So much like Choam, new focuses, new talents. I like this one, Guild Peace, where you can spend momentum to add the trait Guild Peace to a scene, reminding all those present of the power of the guild. It's an environmental trait. It is intended to penalize violent actions, things like that. It's cool. It's a fun way to play and to influence the system and setting through those rules. All right, Spacing Guild. Done for now. But again, these things, background, information or campaign level information. Really good stuff, really well written, very clear in what they want you to know and to how to make use of it. Mechanically, I haven't tried out every single one of them, so you can't... Please don't come to me and be like, this is overpowered. Also, I don't know how... I know what overpowered might be in Dune, but I would really wager that's not an easy thing to actually judge in practice, because too many factors that could influence it. I think I'm also not the kind of person that always thinks of overpowered or underpowered things. Not because I'm like, oh, screw the rules. No. Because I do find these things really have their time and place, and it's all about up to you and your group to make sure that everyone gets to use all their cool stuff. So I'm not going to make a firm stance on any mechanics that come up, because I think they're all probably pretty good. Here's where we get into the mechanic stuff. Well, a little more of it. And this is the fun expanded part from the core book that I totally get why it wasn't in there, but this might be what you've been waiting for a while. The core book has loose rules on building a house and how it gets to interact and influence other things. Super cool. You know, it's not... That part of the game in the base game is not meant to be necessarily part of how you play, or at least not like a given. This expands that out. It makes it more of a game, the house management, because it actually does cover house management. But then other things, what comes first is creating planets, and you roll randomly to create the planet, what kind of type it is. Is it a habitable mineral world, an abandoned volcanic planet, which was the one I rolled up? What its political affiliation is it an agri world, industrial world, mineral mining, etc.? What's its military power like? What's its population and lifestyle? And that in 4 d20 rolls, you can randomly generate a planet. Cool. So you've done that. Now let's go to managing your house. This, I like the system. I like the system as well because it gives you a system, a means of doing this, but then also says this is up to you how much you want to implement it. And that is in the very first sentence. Decide in the group how often you're going to use this. The house management rules. Every session, adventure, even every scene, every in-game year, whatever. Each session is assumed to take place once per game year, but you might be doing this faster. Probably not slower, but maybe faster. Okay, once a month. There's a new character sheet for it, for the house, because the house gets statistics now, much like characters do. These are battle, communicate, discipline, move, and understand. And those are all pretty, to me, those are all pretty self-explanatory, but quickly, battle is military power, communicate is diplomatic reputation and favors owed, but also spies and things like that. Discipline is the loyalty of people and forces. Move is response time, and it gets determined by sort of how you've placed your agents and resources, and not just weapons and things like that, because a diplomat could be involved in this too. And so the example they give is a diplomat responding to allegations made quickly before they're more damaging. So move lets you do that. And understand is academic knowledge of that house. You determine them by size of house, and then assigning an array of values to these 5. They don't have drives, but they do have a sort of system to set up, if there is no player character involved, to determine what that drive rating should be based on how much the other house hates this house, which is kind of fun. Everything from ambivalent to canly. But if a PC is the one taking the action, they're going to use their drive in place. You get status and reputation from 0 to 100, which gives difficulty penalties or bonuses to certain actions and diplomatic actions based on what kind of house you are. If you are a respected house, your reputation as a minor house should be anywhere between 21 and 40. If you're a major house, 41 and 60. That gives you a starting status. So minor house will be 25. So they are just above respected, or just in respected and above weak. Then can sort of work with that to have a raise and lower, I believe. Yeah, there are definitely ways to raise and lower it. Domains. Domains are... Okay, so domains are kind of cool. So you know how I said that there's a new character sheet for the house? Well, there's also a character sheet for house management. And there's also a planet record sheet. And the planet record sheet is a grid of hexes. And your domains, right? So your espionage, your production or industrial or whatever, or military domain, takes up a certain amount of spaces on your planet, whether it's your own planet or the planet of your house major, if you're a minor or a nascent house. And also tells you how many starting spaces you get. Then you basically write in, M for military, and then put that in a hex, and M for military, and put in another hex, until you've filled up 25 for your primary and 10 for any secondary. And here's where I think it gets kind of a lot of fun, and really puts the onus on the players to have agendas. You can, well, first of all, you want your domains to grow. You want to become more powerful. You want to be, you want to be a great house maybe one day. So you're going to want to expand your domains, and you can do that. You can add hexes of sort of control or influence to that map. But there is a limit, and in order to sort of get past that limit, you've got to get a hold of another one. So let's say you're a minor house on a major house's planet. You fill up all your starting spaces. What are you going to do with the rest? What if you want to grow your technology domain higher? Well, abstractly, you need space to do that. You need, whether it's physical, whether it's influential, whether it's whatever, but you need space on that planet to do it. So if there isn't a space you can take because it's empty, you've got to get one. So how do you do that? Diplomacy? It could be assassination, espionage. This gives players motivations to create more plot lines based off their own agenda, because they want to grow their house and make it bigger and better and more powerful and super cool. So I really like that. I think it's a fun way to do it, and I think it's one of those things where maybe as the GM, I might not want to have that sprung on me every session, so it would be my responsibility to kind of check in between, okay, so what's everyone's sort of long-term goals here, and if someone says they want to expand these things out, then we'll look at it, and then I can come to the session prepared. But it's all in there and good. House rules get, I don't know, I guess I would say a little more clarification and a little more oomph than the core book. And this is that every house has a ruler and an heir at the start. Makes sense. Then you pick a number of other rules based on your house type. Some can be picked multiple times, some can only be picked once. A nascent house gets 2 additional rules, a minor house 4. It doesn't mean that the position is empty. These are areas that a PC can, or a PC or a very noteworthy person can take command. So if they do that, then you get certain mechanical advantages. So a marshal reduces crime and makes everyone feel safer and more productive, and so the house gets an extra resource point for every marshal it has. Scholars reduce the difficulty of academic and scientific research projects by a step. And more stuff too. So I like this one. War Master A house with a war master commanding an attack or defense begins a conflict with a momentum pool of 4. Fun. And a good way to kind of encourage the players to take on that stuff. It might have become apparent, but this book is about running the house and playing the house and the members of the house on a house level game. I hope that was clear. Not only by the name, but everything I've been saying. You'll get the most out of it. You'll get solid background information, but you'll get full utility if you implement some of these things here. Then you've got a walkthrough on how to handle house management. These things include getting news from the Imperium, how you generate resources and wealth, how you convert that into resources into wealth, and vice versa, and then how you can implement them in the game. There's a table of events, things like archaeological find, or economic boom, festive invitation, bandit activity, Canley. There is upkeep, and what you need to, basically where you need to start spending this wealth and resources to keep your military power high, to keep your population loyal, to support whatever lifestyle your noble house lives. Again, really useful, handy stuff. And how to raise house skills, or even maintain them, through this too. Then, sort of another fun bit here are ventures, and these are sort of special projects that you can do. This can be like expanding domains. This can be things like throwing a festival, building an orbital facility, developing your military. It could be things like building an alliance, which I quite like. I mean, I think for me, I would probably be using all of these, except any place where it said use this or this. And that comes about because if you look at the boon ventures, which are less tangible things, like I said, it has like alliances. So an alliance with the Bene Gesserit, or an agreement with Chom, having the favor of the Spacing Guild, cultivating unity. You can do all of these things through roleplay. And that's perfectly fine. Of course you can. And you can have all of these things have no mechanics. Again, perfectly fine. Of course you can do that. We've been doing it for a long time with other systems where they have no rules for that. But much like I don't let super charismatic people or super smart people play characters who are not so charismatic or not so knowledgeable and then use their own knowledge to run roughshod, or their own particular charm to run roughshod all over the game when someone else has put points into letting their character be super charming or super knowledgeable. It's the same thing here. A mechanic says it can be done, and it can be done this way, and this is the outcome, and here's how you adjudicate the outcome, and this is what it means mechanically for the game. It's all well and good to be like, okay, I got an alliance with the Bene Gesserit, but this says I have an alliance with the Bene Gesserit. There's nothing that can take that away except by the rules in there. So the GM can't just go like, but I think maybe that wouldn't be the case. No, you spent time and resources on getting this. It's here. To me, it kind of protects the agendas of both players and GMs in that situation. It helps govern it. And then you've got things like personal ventures, so you can train in combat or have a romantic connection, train your subordinates, monitor your enemies, fun things like that too. And these all are actions that you can take whenever you do a house management turn. There's a page on sort of handling warfare, which is just a nice little sort of refresher and kind of slight expansion on a warfare conflict, how to move between houses, and that's that. It might feel like you know, there's a lot in there. I don't want to say is disjointed. It's not. But you might look at it and go like, oh, there's a lot of kind of different stuff in here. But it isn't. It's really all supporting a level of play that is house-based. So here's the background information you need to know about how the Imperium works and how it can work. That's the only way it's working. And then here's how here are the other houses that you'll interact with. Here are the other people. And here's how to run your house mechanically so that you can play this aspect of the game as a game, which I love. I like this sort of level, the scale of game is totally something I'm massively into. I love things like Reign, Greg Stolze's one roll engine game of fantasy, fantasy factions and so on, competing. That domain level play back in AD&D Birthright for a time was one of my favorites because I loved that idea too of running your country. This gives you those rules, and Power and Pawns, it will expand on it in terms of getting more specific about Carino, Kaitain, the Imperial family, some other groups too, and we'll talk about that in our next episode. So for now, this has been Simon from the Tabletop Almanac. This is Dune Adventures in the Imperium, the great game, Houses of the Landsraad. You can click links below to purchase it at various places. They are affiliate links, which means that I get a tiny little cut of whatever you spend, but you don't spend anything more. It's just a way to kind of help bring some of these or other things to this channel. I'd like to thank Modifius for providing this copy for me to review for you here today, and I hope that as a Dune player, new or old, who just hasn't picked it up yet, you go out and grab this. I don't think you will regret it. It's a very useful book. So until next time, stay safe out there and keep your blade sharp. I guess that's the nice way of the nice opposite to may your knife chip and shatter. Anyway, cheers everyone.